Get some! Drop it. All right, power panel. Cenk, Uygur, John Iadarola from Damage Report, Farron Cousins from Ring of Fire. Farron, good to have you, brother.
It's good to be here again.
All right, excellent. So we've got lunatic right-wing conspiracy theories because, of course, we do. A third of the country has totally lost their minds. They could be checked into mental health clinics. So we're going to get to a lot of those, and then we've got an internal fight within the Democratic Party, of course. And then guess which country Tucker Carlson wants us to invade? If you haven't heard the story, you will not be able to guess. Okay, all right, John.
Okay, we should start a pool for the next country he'll want to invade.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's jump into very serious news. Footage of the attack on the husband of Nancy Pelosi has now been released. We're gonna show you this footage. Understand this is an incredibly graphic bit of video of an attempted assassin of Nancy Pelosi attacking her husband. So bear that in mind as we go forward.
640. Oh, yeah, it literally said in there. Hi, how you doing?
Oh yeah.
What's going on, man?
Everything's good.
Hi. Drop the hammer.
Nope. Hey.
What is going on right
I'm
now?
not getting an answer on call. Calls in the area that is from email.
I got him, I got him. Edward 14, Edward 10, backup code 3.
Wow, that is every bit as graphic as you would expect it would be, considering the initial description, the horrendous injuries suffered by Paul Pelosi. We have a lot more on this, but it looks like you have an immediate reaction.
Yeah, I just want to say one quick thing there. So as you're going to see as this plays out, Paul Pelosi's trying to get the cops to come to his house, right? And he's been trying to talk DePape down so that DePape doesn't attack him before the cops arrive. That's why he's got his hand on the hammer. That's why he's like this, and that's the only. It might be the only police altercation video that we've covered on the Young Turks in 20 years where I was thinking, I wish the cops had shot him, like that they had fired, because I'm like, he's gonna use the hammer. Now, of course, benefit of hindsight. I'm not blaming the cops. It was very hard to tell.
All happened very fast.
Yes, and Pelosi was standing right next to him. So I'm not blaming them. But man, that was a rare instance where I was like, oh, I wish they'd taken more physical action the cops had against the assailant. And I literally never said that before.
Yeah.
And as you're gonna see here, the guy broke in earlier, and also it has not stopped the right wingers from any of their conspiracy theories. All over social media, they still say the same exact things, even after seeing that horrific video and more overwhelming evidence of the break-in.
Yeah, literally nothing can come out, no evidence can come out that is going to change their mind. We'll get into that, but first I want to give you information. This video was released because Judge Stephen Murphy of San Francisco Superior Court ordered it to be released. There had been news organizations that had been pushing for it. We're gonna give their argument. But first, in addition to this, you also have portions of a police interview with the suspect, which I think also it should be considered kind of crucial evidence for figuring out what we should take away from this attack. We've seen this before in text form, but here's a bit of that actual police interview.
It's like, the time you called it, it's just like,
they fought the British. They fought the tyranny. They didn't just surrender to it. And when I left my house, I left to go fight tyranny. I did not leave to go surrender.
So this is, as is so often the case, one of these right-wingers engaging in an act of targeted political violence who wants nothing more than for you to understand exactly what his motivation was, and thus that video and all details similar to it will be completely ignored by the right wing going forward. So before we jump into the conversation, the news, because the release of the video is contentious. Many people are wondering, is it necessary for people to see this? The lawyer arguing for the news organization, the sort of consortium of news organizations, says these are open facts, they are known facts. The public's right of access should not be dependent on conspiracy theories. Now, I don't know Thomas Burke, I don't know if he's operating in good faith. That same argument could be made by an honest person who just wants transparency, or it could be Jesse Waters' personal lawyer, I don't know. What I do know is that either way, and we could have predicted this, now it's been proven, all of this video coming out is not going to stop the conspiracy theories, because the conspiracy theories are not based in an honest disagreement about the facts and an honest desire for more information. The right wing is never going to be presented with a piece of information that is going to result in them saying, oh, we've messed up. And Tucker Carlson is going to come forward and say, it looks like this guy watched a lot of our type of content and he went way too far and it's terrible and we're going to rethink our business model going forward. That is never going to happen. The conspiracy theories are not based in honesty. And so whether this is an honest request to try to get around that or not, it's not going to work.
Yeah, before we get into more analysis, actually, I do want to show the debate breaking into the House, because it's really important that you guys see that. Because a lot of the right-wing conspiracy theories, obviously completely imagined, completely made up, with not one piece of evidence, because they're all lunatics at this point. And now if I meet a Republican, I assume they're a lunatic, but it's a rebuttable presumption. They could prove that they are not a lunatic, but they're gonna have to prove it because they believe in nonsense like this. So here, can we show DePape breaking into the House? Yeah, so that's him hitting the back door with a hammer. I watched that whole 4 or 5 minute tape of that, of him breaking in, and it's super scary because he just casually walks to the backyard, seemingly backyard, and he's got his materials, he's got his duct tape, he's got his zip ties, etc. He calmly gets his stuff together. Meanwhile, Pelosi's sleeping upstairs, right? And has no idea that there's this lunatic in his backyard. And then the guy starts hammering and a little bit of hammering and then eventually wailing away, as you see there. So I have one exception we'll get to. One right-wing host has now said, yeah, it turns out they didn't know each other, all the conspiracy theories were wrong, etc.
You mean that Elon Musk was wrong when he basically asserted that it was some sort of gay affair?
By the way, the ones who all asserted this were Elon Musk. He removed his tweet a couple hours later. It was from he had put it attached some idiot right-wing site. Which, by the way, is there a non-idiot right-wing site? Is there a non-lying right-wing site? Correct answer: no. No, if you read a right-wing website, you should assume that everything in it is a lie. Sometimes when someone is not lying, a Republican is not lying, we'll do breaking news as I'm going to later. There's one host who's not lying here, and it's a bit shocking, okay? But Ted Cruz, Elon Musk, Donald Trump Jr., Candace Owens, they all were like, oh yeah, I bet they were together. Bunch of absolute moron lunatics. It's not debatable, it's not 50-50. Ted Cruz is a terrible person, terrible. Just to know that a person's head was hammered in, and that is your colleague's husband. And to falsely, you think Ted Cruz doesn't know that they weren't together? He knows. These vile pieces of crap that are Republicans. Not one of them has apologized, not one. Because they don't care about the truth. They actively hate the truth. They brainwash their idiot followers into believing this insanity. So there's a giant mental health problem in this country, gigantic. A third of the country has lost its mind, and I don't know what to do about it. All right, Farron, weigh in.
It's hard to follow that up a little bit, but no, I think you absolutely it was spot on. what we're dealing with right now with the right, conspiracy theories aside, is that level of violence. And to watch it unfold in that video, it sends shivers down the spines of not just the members of Congress who've had to beef up their security, which we've been talking about for years, but also people like us. I know very well that each and every one of us has gotten threats from some lunatic here or there saying, I'm gonna come and do this thing to you. I'm going to do it to your families. We've all gotten that. And to see it unfold, it just puts that thought in your head like that could be us. We could be next. That could be my back door. And so that's, to me, one of the reasons why this is so terrifying. And then, of course, when you add in just the sheer stupidity and ignorance and hatred that these Republicans have by spreading these conspiracy theories that are all debunked in those clips that you just showed. Like, you don't even have to watch the full, minutes and minutes and minutes of videos. Just from what you've shown there proves that these people are lying to you, and you're choosing to accept the lie rather than to spend just a couple moments of your life looking at this tape and realizing everything you've been told by these people is an utter lie. And so those are my two big things with this. One, we've all gotten those threats, never knowing exactly, is this person just, a wacko 1,000 miles away, or is this person down the block from me? And just the sheer refusal to accept reality on the right. Those are my two big things here.
So far, I have not yet seen this whole day any Republicans. There must have been some, I guess, but I'm not positive. Come out and say, horrified. We're so sorry. At a minimum, we're so sorry that she had to go through this. Let alone in the beginning, when the attack first happened, some Republicans put out press releases saying, "Yeah, I guess it's bad to try to murder the Speaker of the House's husband." Okay, very mild statements. But today they should be like horrified. Nothing. You know why? Because they're not horrified.
Nope.
It's stochastic terrorism. They egg on their base that they know is not that bright. That's why Tucker Carlson always says these lunatic things, because he knows the people watching not that bright. They'll believe anything. So they just egg them on. They go, "Oh, whoops! Look, another one of our fans wound up trying to murder you."
Yeah.
Oh, I guess you caught a tough break. Until next time. And that's what we have to deal with here. So there are fascists among us, a lot of them, and these are super scary times.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people incredibly worried about what tonight on Fox is going to be like. Not only with what's coming out of Memphis when that video and all that, God only knows what they're going to be saying on that network, but for this as well. Honestly, silence probably preferable to the takes they'll have. And I know that in the immediate aftermath, like a couple days after the initial attack, they were posting jokes. They thought it was the funniest thing ever. People posting costumes of them dressed up as the assassin who tried to murder Nancy Pelosi. Don Jr. putting on Instagram photos of all of that stuff. They thought it was hilarious that someone bashed in this old man's head. Like, we're supposed to be crazy radicals. We're supposed to be like, they are proving everything we're saying about who they are and what they want. They wish he had succeeded in killing Nancy Pelosi. It is not a radical thing to say that. It is extreme to believe anything other than that. And we're gonna see what they're gonna make out of all of this evidence. But why don't we go to Fox's initial reaction to what's been unveiled. It looks like this isn't enough evidence. They want more. Let's hear them make the case.
Where is the evidence of a breaking and entering? I get what you're saying, Sandra, about always casing the area.
There's video of him breaking through the house. There's video of him
breaking through the house.
Okay, it's on the screen right now.
Okay.
No, and I assume it's with the hammer that you later see him with. But there's clear video that we have been given outside of the house. The attackers on the right side of the screen breaking through the house.
Got it. Well, what? Okay, great. Then maybe that's
he's
true.
clearly
Maybe I'm wrong.
using that to break in.
Yeah, okay, but what? Can't we talk more about what is the DOJ doing? Are we supposed to just give a hall pass on such an important fact? That to me, I think there was a clear narrative that the DOJ wanted to propagate in this, and we've been going through this with other occasions, with the Hunter Biden thing, with the Mar-a-Lago, search warrant. I think that's really, to me, the biggest takeaway. That why is there not truth in what happened with that entry?
You're watching the entry right then. All he wants is proof of entry. Oh, it's there? Oh, I didn't care enough all day to even Google it, to take a look if it was out there. Oh, okay, so that destroys my whole narrative. Hunter Biden, Mar-a-Lago, Russia, something, anything. I don't have a functioning brain. I'm just here to get people to clap for me, maybe give me some of their money. I don't know who that individual is. I don't care. No one should care. He's just there to spread conspiracy theories. That's it. And as soon as it's shot down, and credit to the Fox host for at least admitting what was already publicly available, he immediately just goes vaguer. Something must be going on about, again, the entry. He's seeing the guy break in, and that's not enough evidence. He's seen the break in, he's seen him bash his head in. He's gonna go back to tweeting about how it's a gay affair later on tonight.
So the DOJ reference that he's making is in the conspiracy theories. They say that the Department of Justice is pretending that DePape broke in because they're the deep state. When DePape didn't break in, him and Pelosi have been longtime acquaintances, relationship, etc. The Department of Justice is lying about it. So they show the tape of the guy breaking in, and he goes back to, it's very questionable what the Department of Justice is saying. No, that tape proves beyond any doubt that the Department of Justice was telling the truth. But guys, that's what I'm trying to convey to you. For most right-wingers, they don't care what's true. And that's so shocking to us. We just are having trouble comprehending it. Like, because our whole lives, if you're a rational person, you've grown up thinking it matters what's true. They're just saying, like, about a third of the country is just saying, I don't care. I don't care what's factual, I don't care what's rational, I don't care what's logical. I can see a tape of a guy breaking in and say, he's not breaking in, and the Department of Justice is lying about him breaking in. Even with my own eyes, I see it right there. I don't care. I don't. In fact, guys, I put out a tweet about this, or two of them. Every right winger commenting, not just including blue checks, every one of them says, "Oh yeah, no, this proves we were right." Well, he's in his pajamas. It's like 2, 3 in the morning. What the hell is he supposed to be in?
3-piece suit, obviously.
Like, no, you are mentally ill. Check yourself into a facility, okay? Now, look, we, unlike the right wing, are fair. So the anchors there, Smith and Roberts, they did a good job of at least checking him. Why is the guy on the air? Because before the tape came out, every Fox producer, everybody at Fox goes, oh, okay, let's get the conspiracy theorist on here. Let's tell them, oh yeah, it's Pelosi's fault. It's Pelosi's fault. This shows that they're even more wrong. Okay, and then, oops, they got the tape just before the guy came on.
Yeah.
And then they showed the tape, and Smith and Roberts, to their credit, were like, I have eyes. No, that's not what's happening, okay? Yeah. And now here's the credit to the other right winger. And guys, now literally anytime a right winger, whether it's a pundit or a politician, tells the truth, it's breaking news. That's why I'm giving this to you. Glenn Beck said this proves that the conspiracy theories are wrong. And I was like, whoa, oh my God.
Jeez.
That is literally shocking to have a right-wing pundit say something that's true once. It's shocking. I was like, I couldn't believe it. Hey, that one right winger is telling the truth about something that is exceedingly obvious. I don't know how we're gonna live together. I don't know how. All right, Farron.
I wouldn't have guessed in a million years that it was Glenn Beck that came out and said, oh, I guess the conspiracy theories are wrong. So I'm glad I didn't put any money on that. But that guy on Fox right there, because I want to go back to what John said, he kind of malfunctioned. And he really did, like you saw his brain, like his whole world shattered for just a moment because he suddenly realizes, oh no, I can't go with this conspiracy theory. So he stutters and stammers it. Well, Biden deep state. So his brain, you're watching it in real time, starts throwing out all of these conservative buzzwords at the same time. And he's doing everything he can to just spew it right there on the air. And he doesn't, I guarantee you, he has no idea what he said after that, right? The little hamster got off the wheel and is getting some water and the brain just stopped. So he tried to piece together every other conspiracy theory he has.
Yeah.
And it was almost beautiful to watch it, because that is what their brains do. You can tear down one of their conspiracy theories and then they immediately start assembling a new one to make the world make sense.
Yep.
This is a coping mechanism for them. It's not just pushing a political agenda. They do it to make their world make sense. And we just got to see it happen in real time there.
100%. Yeah. It's not about, as Cenk was getting into, the search for truth. It's objective oriented. They do not want a national reckoning on political violence and extremism. And so no matter how obvious and indisputable the instances of it are, they're going to find some reason to throw aspersions on it, make it an LGBTQ conspiracy theory, or just ignore it if they have to. And so as the evidence gets even more incontrovertible in this case, I assume they're gonna move on to other stuff. I don't know, what's Twix up to recently? They'll find something to fill the time.
Yeah, look, last two things for me is one, every time Ted Cruz goes and talks to a reporter, they should ask him, have you apologized yet to Nancy Pelosi and Paul Pelosi for lying about what happened to them and insinuating horrific things, you goddamn monster, okay? Well, but they won't. Maybe you'll get a question or two in the beginning. It'll be like a little bit of a gotcha, and then everybody will let it go, right? And then but the thing that drives me crazy is that they will then go back the very next day and take his proposal seriously. Oh, well, you'd like to do more tax cuts for the rich. Well, that sounds like a great idea. Well, that's a legitimate idea. I bet it's not because of your campaign contributors or you're an honest person. No, they are not honest people. Look, I don't know that the mainstream media is honest either. But if they are, they can't get it through their thick skulls that the Republicans are all constantly lying, because in every story, well, the Republicans say this and the Democrats say that. God, if you find a reporter, please let them know so they can determine which one is true and which one isn't. But for us, hey, we're mainstream media. We're gonna say they're both equally valid. And you notice what John led with. The guy said, by the way, you should know this too. He says to the cops that he had planned to get Nancy Pelosi and break her kneecaps with that hammer. So and he was completely non-apologetic about it. And what did he talk about? Government tyranny.
Yep.
Now you will see going forward, forget about the past, going forward, you'll see, because we're right, we're 100% right. You will still see Republican politicians and Republican talk show hosts all talking about government tyranny. You really should do something about government tyranny. That's why you have your Second Amendment rights, because of government tyranny. So I always say, like, what do you want them to kill cops? You want them to kill the military? Which government tyranny are you talking about? But of course, what they really mean is go murder Democrats.
Yep.
Jesus Christ, this is the country we live in now. Now, is every Republican gonna do that? No, there's 100 million Republicans in the country. But out of that 100 million, are they gonna find a couple of DePapes or a couple of dozen or a couple of hundred DePapes? Well, they already have. Trying to kidnap the governor of Michigan, driving a truck full of bombs they claim bombs into Washington, D.C., the pipe bombs on January 6th. We can go on and on. We've shown you dozens of cases of right-wing idiots who believed maniacal, hateful right-wing politicians and pundits who told them, it's government tyranny. Aren't you gonna do something about it?
Yep. Well, we've got a lot more to get to. We're gonna take our first break. We'll be right back.
All right, back on TYT Power Panel, Cenk, Uygur, Iadarola, Farron Cousins, and Andy Shemkis and Brad David, because they just became Young Turks members by hitting the join button below the video. You guys are awesome. You make this show possible. And yes, you help us get the truth out there, which is sorely needed in media, unfortunately. You could also, of course, join through tyt.com/join. All right, John.
Okay, let's get into it. Let's jump into this.
We're blessed in this nation with abundant natural resources, but apparently we're cursed by liberal politicians who don't want us to tap into those abundant resources. Go and learn. Go and learn for yourself about this. Educate yourself on how America attained its low emissions. If you care about the air quality, you care about climate change. Natural gas is what got America there. Educate yourself on that.
That is Representative Jeff Duncan. I believe he represents the great state of fossil gas manufacturing, I guess. That's who he's there to protect the interests of. He's furious at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for disagreeing with him on a debate having to do with drilling. So let me give you the details of what was going on. So they were able to pass this legislation to increase oil drilling on public lands. Of course, it's not going to pass the Senate, and it would be vetoed anyway. But get used to it. This is what the House is like now. This bill was introduced by House Energy and Commerce Chairwoman Kathy McMorris Rodgers. It would require the government to approve a plan to increase drilling on federal lands and waters prior to any non-emergency drawdown of the strategic reserve of petroleum. The percentage of public lands and offshore waters that leased would be required to increase by the same percentage as any drawdown from that reserve. So basically, if it's not from their point of view an emergency, and you take 10% of the oil out of the strategic reserve, then you have to increase the total amount of acres of federal land leased to fossil fuel companies by 10%. Why does that make sense? Why would those two things be related? I don't know. They're not making a case for it. They just think that it would be awesome if it was. They're especially mad, though, that following the Russian invasion of Ukraine and the spike in gas prices, Joe Biden decided to tap into the strategic reserve to try to lower the cost of gas, which is something presidents have done multiple times over the last couple of decades. They were furious about this because it did, at least in the short term, have the effect of lowering the cost of gas. And they didn't want the cost of gas to go down. It was a very convenient thing to complain about in the run up to the midterm elections. That gas was so expensive. They would go on Fox News, they'd complain about the cost of gas, and then they would block literally any attempt to lower that cost. And so they want to make it illegal for him to do that in the future. That thing that he did, that if Donald Trump had still been president, he totally would have done as well. And so what does this have to do with AOC? Well, she's not a fan of that, obviously. She was speaking out against it. And in addition, she was saying that leases should not be provided to any oil company that engages in stock buybacks, which is certainly a relevant topic, considering that Chevron alone announced this week they were going to be engaging in $75 billion worth of stock buybacks. It is the proof, if any additional proof was needed, that the increase in prices last year was not about the supply chain or the cost of production. It was price gouging. Plain and simple. They doubled their profits last year, and now they're going to reap the benefits of that by buying their stock back and making their executives even more fabulously wealthy. And so he didn't like that she was pointing that out. She's there to represent the people. He's there to represent ExxonMobil and Chevron, and here is how it played out.
Natural gas is what got America there. Educate yourself on that. Then we can have a better debate about future resources, future energy production.
I understand in this body it's not the first time that it seems as though the opposing side can't seem to be able to debate the issue. And so they must come after my character. While I cannot control the fact that the other side seems to have made the assumption that I am uneducated or what they may say about my worldview, one of the things that I can say is that while I may not work for Wall Street, that is true. I may not be here with the mission to increase profits for corporations. That is true. My mission here is for the well-being and dignity of our family and our planet's future. Moreover, when we talk about education, we should all take it upon ourselves in this body to educate ourselves on the science of the challenge of climate change that is before us.
Now, the Republicans largely won out on their bill, although they didn't get everything that they individually wanted. Marjorie Greene had some stupid amendment that got like 15 votes, which means that the vast majority of Republicans even voted against it. So that's hilarious. But that was the little disagreement. She's pointing out that we should pass regulations that benefit the people rather than the stock price of fossil fuel companies, and he was incredibly aggrieved by that.
Yeah, so he interrupted in a rude way. He didn't address the chair. There's all these little details too as to the sign of disrespect. And then he says, derisively, you should get yourself educated. Now, AOC's response was very good, and she talked about, corruption basically, but a little bit obliquely, referring to campaign donations, etc. But great, I love it. I'll take it. So I'm not trying to criticize her when I say this. It was a very good response. But this is why I wish I had won when I ran for Congress. Because if Jeff Duncan had made the mistake of saying that to me, I would have said, listen, I'm not gonna sit here and take advice from a guy, and I would already, I would have studied every one of their campaign contributions. I would have already done speeches on it. So I would have brought up however much money that the crook Jeff Duncan took from oil companies and gas companies, and I would have brought that out. But let's say that you didn't have that available, but he definitely takes it. I say, look, I'm not going to ask to get educated by a guy who's a crook, who takes this money and serves the oil companies and the gas companies 100%. And by the way, Representative Duncan should go get an education, because then he might find out that 99% of the world's scientists believe that climate change is real and it's man-made. But since Representative Jeff Duncan is a complete and utter moron, he thinks, no, he knows better than the world's 99% of the world's scientists. He thinks the scientists in Botswana and India and America and Russia all got together and they're like, oh, let's fake the temperature readings. Because Representative Jeff Duncan is an ignorant fool who desperately needs an education. And I can go on with 10 other examples, right? And you know what would have happened? All of a sudden, the Republicans would have been outraged. I don't play goddamn defense, I play offense. And there's so much offense to play. And Duncan would have been like, oh, how dare someone say that I should get an education? Goddamn right. All these Republicans, they're all crooks. 100% crooks. $75 billion they took home. It's gone, we're never gonna get it back. There's not gonna be any windfall profits tax. Guys, get the irony of this. The industry that creates the worst effect on the planet and might literally get us all killed because of climate change. According to 99% of the world's scientists, it's just like the movie Don't Look Up. It's exactly like it. They're like, it's coming, it's gonna wipe us out. The industry that creates that is also the single most profitable industry in the world. And the Republicans go, no, they should drill more. They should take public lands that were for your enjoyment and your family to go fishing and hiking, etc. We should sell it off to these sons of bitches. By the way, we also should get almost no money back for the American people. It's our natural resources. And guys like Jeff Duncan go, no way, man. That's Chevron and ExxonMobil's. That's theirs. They should have it all. And by the way, they should give me 0.01% in a legalized bribe so I can come out here and kiss their ass. Hey, Jeff Duncan, you ignorant fool. Your family is also in danger. There's no talking to idiots like Jeff Duncan. Total moron. You go get a goddamn education. You sorely, sorely need it. Farron.
The total, by the way, is a little over $600,000 that Duncan's gotten over his career from oil, gas, and electric utilities. But the other part of this too is, he's sitting there saying, natural gas is how we got energy independent here. Educate yourself. All right, let's educate folks on natural gas, which, by the way, is primarily made up with methane, which is just about one of the worst greenhouse gases we can spew into the atmosphere. That's what natural gas is. Over its lifetime, most natural gas is actually dirtier than any other fossil fuel. Sometimes, if it's fracked gas, even dirtier over its lifetime than the burning of coal. And here we have this numbskull sitting there saying, y'all aren't educated. Nope, seems like you're the one that has no friggin' clue what you're talking about, especially considering the fact that you're talking about a bill regarding the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, but you're up there talking about natural gas and drilling for natural gas, which has zero to do with the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. So not even sure why he's bringing that up, other than, of course, to repay his donors who gave him more than $600,000. And he's got to do whatever he's got to do to make sure they get their profits back so that they too in the future can buy back all their stock.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah. When I I'm talking to somebody and they tell me that they're Republican, I assume they're ignorant. I assume they know almost nothing about politics or policy or anything. That they listen to morons like Jeff Duncan. And they're like, oh yeah, fracking, that's saved the planet. That's what, yeah. You know what happened here? A quick story. Rex Tillerson, former CEO of ExxonMobil, former Secretary of State for Donald Trump. ExxonMobil did tons and tons of fracking, right? And he publicly defended it. Oh yeah, fracking's awesome. It's good for the environment. Oh yeah, we're saving the environment by drilling and releasing all this methane into the air. And just coincidentally, some other company was going to do fracking near his house in Texas. You know what he did? He joined a local group protesting the fracking near his house. Because it's so safe, right? Right? Jeff Duncan is one of the dumbest people in America. It's too late for him to get an education. He should just give up and go home.
I like that as a secondary career option. That said, we do have to take our second break. More to come after this.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk, John, and Farron with you guys. John, go.
Lots of important stuff to get to. Some of it a little bit dense, but also very spicy. If you're into like spy thrillers and legal thrillers and stuff like that, take a look at this. Back in 2019, just a few weeks after Special Counsel Robert Mueller's report was released, Donald Trump decided that he wanted to have an investigation of his own. He'd been reading stuff on 4chan and it seemed very plausible. And so he decided to have some of his goons look into some of these things that were going around. Egged on by Trump, Attorney General William Barr, who, remember, was just a few weeks out from putting out his letter before the Mueller report came out that lied about its contents and was eaten up by conspiracy theorists online, turned to a hard-nosed prosecutor named John Durham and later granted him special counsel status to carry on after Mr. Trump left office. And so the idea that they were investigating was this theory that there was some sort of massive conspiracy, a deep state thing, a Q thing, I don't know, where the investigation of Donald Trump was being driven by, that they were breaking the rules in their investigation, they were ignoring inconvenient facts, doing whatever was necessary to get Donald Trump. And so they decided to investigate those people, and as new reporting is coming out and revealing, they ended up doing all of those things that they were accusing the other side of, and thus far, 4 years later, have come up with diddly squat when it comes to their investigation. So it's been 4 years. It was actually longer than the Russia investigation that spawned it. Mr. Durham's work is coming to an end without uncovering anything like the original deep state plot that was alleged. So the New York Times did interviews with more than a dozen current and former officials, revealing how an array of previously unreported episodes that show how the Durham inquiry became roiled by internal dissent and ethical disputes as it went unsuccessfully down one conspiratorial path after another. And along the way, understanding that they had close contact with this guy and he was coming up with absolutely nothing, both Donald Trump and William Barr kept pretending that there was something there, which led to endless monologues by Sean Hannity about how the other shoe was about to drop and all of that, but they found nothing. So what are some examples of these episodes that we hadn't previously known about? Well, Mr. Barr and Mr. Durham have never disclosed that their inquiry expanded back in the fall of 2019 based on a tip from Italian officials to include a criminal investigation into suspicious financial dealings related to Mr. Trump. That's interesting, spicy even, but the specifics of the tip and how they handled the investigation remain unclear. Mr. Durham has brought no charges over it, and one has to wonder if he did come across something, would he reveal it? Would he investigate it based on what the origin of their investigation was? You can feel free to believe that for some reason. Also, Mr. Durham used Russian intelligence memos that were suspected by other US officials of containing disinformation to gain access to emails of an aide to George Soros, the financier and philanthropist who is a favorite target of the American right and Russian state media. Mr. Durham used grand jury powers to keep pursuing the emails, even after a judge twice rejected his request for access to them. In the end, the emails yielded no evidence that Mr. Durham has cited in any case he pursued. We've got a couple of other spicy little elements of this, but I think that that's enough to get this conversation started. What do you both think about this?
Yeah, so it turns out they were wrong about everything. They said, oh, it's the deep state, and it's gonna be, Trump said many times, the worst thing that's ever happened in America. Like, he almost literally said that, right? And so they investigated the FBI. Good news, the Department of Justice, they have access to the FBI. They looked through all of it. Turns out, no, there was no political motivation. And they found not one shred of evidence about it, nothing. Because you know why? It wasn't a political investigation. It was started by an Australian diplomat saying, I talked to somebody on Trump's team, and which was true. And he seemed to know about that Russia had the emails before it was public. And so the FBI is like, oh, how did he know before it was public? And so that's part of the reason that they started an investigation. Perfectly legitimate. Every judge that looked at it thought it was perfectly legitimate. They looked through all of the FBI's information, nothing to indicate that it was political or anti-Trump. Then they looked at the CIA. Nothing to indicate that the CIA had done anything against Donald Trump. And these guys, Durham, and there's an expert quoted in the New York Times saying that they had worked with Durham and Barr earlier in their careers, and they were serious, legitimate prosecutors that were, non-lunatics, let's put it that way. And he was quoted as saying, I don't know when they drank the Kool-Aid, but this is so weird. This is that none of what there's like, none of it is true. None of it is close to true. But by the way, now that the Durham report, which was supposed to be, it's gonna show Hillary Clinton and the FBI and the CIA all worked, blah, 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 blah. Now that it's been proven that it was, no, none of that was shown. There was no evidence of it. And even Barr and Durham, enormous goddamn liars, okay, and I've got some of their lies for you here. They come out and like, oops, I guess it didn't happen. Not one right-winger will be convinced of it. They will just go back and go, who cares? We didn't have any evidence that Trump won the election. We didn't have any evidence of a pedophile ring. We didn't have any evidence of anything. It doesn't matter. We're gonna say it was the deep state anyway, because Republicans don't believe in facts.
The Durham grand jury that he had actually had impaneled, it disbanded, I think 3 or 4 months ago. So effectively at that point, he lost any authority to subpoena anybody, to issue any criminal charges. Like the grand jury, again, they've been gone for months, yet for some reason, Durham is still technically in this position. He's still on the payroll. Why has Merrick Garland not come out and said, hey bud, I don't know if you realize this, but you're done. You can go. We don't need you here. So that's a big question I still have about all of this. Like, why is he still doing this when we know it's over? And he knows it's over. The second question is, how dang corrupt do you have to be when your own people go over to Italy, beg these officials, hey, I need you to help us discredit this, and instead they're like, yeah, we've got some things here that probably show some financial crimes by your guy. So instead of helping you, we're gonna tell you that the guy that hired you is probably a criminal. And the report says that Durham and Barr didn't want to do it, but they both felt this tip from the Italian officials was so credible that they had no choice. So again, little weird. We don't know what they did with it. We don't know if they did anything with it. They swore they would, but they thought it was credible, even though they were actually there to get information to discredit Mueller. Totally wild chain of events that happened there.
Yeah, I want to pick up on what Farron said, because Barr and Durham at this point have drank the Kool-Aid when the Italians tell them this is a financial crime and here's evidence of Trump's financial crime. And they don't want to see anything like that. They had to come for the opposite reason, as Farron just explained. And they're like, whoa, that's really bad, okay? And that's the only real criminal investigation that comes out, except we don't know what happened with it. So to Farron's point, Merrick Garland, what are you doing? What, are you just gonna let him bury it for years? apparently there was such overwhelming evidence that even Barr and Durham were like, oh, yeah, Trump might have committed financial crimes. You want to get on it? No, he's, oh yeah, probably in the third term or something, we'll get on it.
Yeah.
The Democrats are so pathetically weak. It's just unbearable. Meanwhile, I found a quote from Trump. He said about the deep state and the FBI, et cetera, framing him and working together for the Russia hoax. This exact Durham investigation, he said, quote, "It is the single biggest political crime in the history of our country."
I've heard Sean Hannity say that many times. I've heard Tucker Carlson say that. In their defense, they have said that same thing about many, many different things. It's hard to keep track of all of the things that are the worst crime ever. I would love to find out what was going on in Italy. It makes one wonder. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, admittedly. I'll leave that to Farron. Can nobody else look into it? Like, do we just have to wait for Durham? Like, I feel like Merrick Garland could hop a flight to Rome, ask a few questions. Is that illegal? Is it like a double jeopardy thing? Only one person gets to look into a time. I don't understand it. As to your first question about what he's still doing after they've disbanded the grand jury, it's just nice to have a hobby, you know? And he probably doesn't want to have to pack up his office, so he's just gonna stick it out for as long as he can. I understand it, a rough job market. But to really demonstrate, I think, how little there was to their big conspiracy theory, I'm actually gonna use a piece of evidence that's gonna seem weird at first. It's the one thing that they did find. So here's what they found. I'm gonna jump ahead of the last graphic. Durham's only charge so far against the government official was back in 2020. It stemmed from a referral made by Justice Department Inspector General Michael Horowitz, who found that an FBI attorney had altered an email when trying to get a sign off on a fourth round of FISA surveillance on Trump campaign aide Carter Page. The attorney, Kevin Kleinsmith, pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 12 months of probation. But the judge in his case concluded he didn't have political motives and was instead engaged in bureaucratic corner cutting. He knew that he could get it, he didn't want to go through it, so he just did the thing himself. So that's illegal, it should be illegal, he should do time for it. This is the FBI, the CIA, all of these groups who I think we can all agree have not been averse to breaking the law in the past or having ideological motives for what they do. And after 4 years of investigating, all you found was a guy who faked a signature to save himself some time. How do you not accidentally stumble across more corruption, malfeasance, crimes in the CIA and the FBI? This is the biggest issue for Trump, is that he has always and forever been surrounded by utter incompetence, who even in a place utterly ripe with criminal activity and corruption, all that, they can't even accidentally come across anything. Any final thoughts, Cenk?
Yeah, so now Barr is finally turned on Trump because Trump, apparently he had a limit, right? And Trump was like, okay, now Barr this entire time is telling Durham, go get him. They're having steak dinners together. They're getting drunk together. This is all in the story, right? And Barr's going out on TV and they have quotes from him in the New York Times story where he's like, this is all worse than we expected. Boy, wait till you find out what's in the Durham report. Even though he knows there's no evidence at all, okay? These guys are the worst people on earth. But even Barr, when Trump said after the 2020 election, why don't you just make up that we won the election? Barr was like, well, that seems a bit much, right? Like, then we might all go to prison because that's kind of a coup. And then he finally realized, oh, okay, Trump's a bad guy. You don't say, Bill, you don't say. But the reason I tell you that is, because MSNBC is going to try to rehabilitate Barr's reputation any second now, okay? Don't believe the hype. Barr and Durham are terrible people, okay? And so nothing should resuscitate Barr's reputation, despite the fact that at the last second he didn't agree with Trump. Yeah. Oh yeah, we should destroy America together.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, I like to look at John Durham at this point. He's basically Milton from Office Space. Like, you were basically let go a long time ago because you don't have a job to do anymore, but due to a glitch, you're just still getting paid for this. So maybe it's time for Merrick Garland to be like, you know what, we're gonna fix the glitch. You can stay here if you want, but you're not gonna get a piece of birthday cake. You're not gonna get a paycheck. It's really time for you to go. But on your way out, Merrick Garland needs to ask him, like, by the way, can I just have those documents that those Italian officials gave to you? I just need to look at them real quick, just to see if I need to go get Jack Smith to go down another tunnel to investigate Trump further. I mean, I almost hate to say we need another investigation because there's about 1 million of them happening, but when you have foreign officials coming to your Department of Justice saying, yeah, your guy did some crimes, could you fix this? That seems pretty credible. Seems like something we ought to be pursuing at this point.
Durham's last words in the office are going to be, "That's my stapler."
Durham doesn't like salt on the rim, big grains of salt. Anyway, that's way too serious of a last story to transition to a fun second hour in. We need a palate cleanser. Here is some just raw, undiluted insanity.
Why should we stand back and let our biggest trading partner, the country with which we share the longest border, and actually, I could just say a great country, I love Canada, I've always loved Canada because of its natural beauty. Why should we let it become Cuba? Like, why don't we liberate it? We're spending all this money to liberate Ukraine from the Russians. Why are we not sending an armed force north to liberate Canada from Trudeau? And I mean it.
So one of the regrettably most popular voices in cable news is advocating for invading Canada because of something having to do with vaccine protests or something. It's stupid. It's so stupid that we shouldn't be burdened by this sort of thing as a culture, as a people, but we are. Cenk, should we invade Canada? Does he have a point? Is Trudeau a dictator?
First, I'd like to say blame Canada. Okay, look, when I saw the headline, I was like, nah. Even Tucker, a guy who says you should, laser your crotch so that you could be more of a man, or whatever that thing that he was pushing was.
Like microwave your crotch.
Okay, to be fair. Okay, so
put it on the popcorn setting.
I'm like, no, he's trolling. This is not real, right? He must have been mainly joking, and people. And then I started watching the clip. In the beginning, it seems like he's joking, and I'm like, I knew it, right? No, by the end, you saw the clip. He's like, no, I mean it. We should invade Canada. By the way, this is the same type of Carlson that Glenn Greenwald, Jimmy Dore, et cetera, say is anti-war, and that's why they like him so much, and that's why that Tucker Carlson is more progressive than Democrats, because he's anti-war. But he's saying, because I don't like the Canadian Prime Minister, I think we should invade. Okay. But the right wing will find that plausible. I don't mean the politicians, but although you never know. But I bet his entire audience is like, interesting. All right, go ahead, Farron.
Well, the scary part about Tucker Carlson is that he is so influential with the right that if he wants to keep this up, if he wants to continue saying invade Canada, we'll be like 2 weeks away from a Republican politician showing up at the UN with a little vial saying, this is Canada. They've got these weapons of mass destruction. We need to liberate them, to save. I mean, that is sadly how influential Tucker Carlson could be and is actually. So I'm almost curious, as just an experiment in humanity, to see if Tucker can just keep it up, to see if we can then get Republican politicians to go full crazy and say that we should invade Canada. I think Tucker should stay on it, because I really want to see if our country is just that far gone.
Yeah. So guys, when I joke around a lot on the show, right? I remember this has now become a bit legendary. Over a decade ago, I joked around about some guy was having sex with a horse, and we're kidding around about it. And I say, is it a big deal if the horse is getting it, et cetera? And then at the end, I say, well, the horse would say, is it a big deal? Nay, right? That doesn't even make sense. It's just sheep sound. Anyway, okay. So it's the most obvious joke in the world, and people are like, no, that's it. By the way, including the New York Times, pretended that bestiality was part of my campaign platform. Okay.
Tax breaks for.
So I tell you all of that. By the way, now there's like thousands of people watching this going, oh, that's what that's a reference to. Okay. So Now, I tell you that because the last thing I'm gonna do is pretend somebody is serious when they're joking, right? And I would never say like a joke and then go, I mean it, and then leave it at that. Because then you would think that I mean it, right? No, he's not joking. And now, does that mean he's serious, like that he literally wants to invade Canada? No, Tucker has concluded my audience IQ is not in the double digits, okay? And I can get them to do anything. I can get them to believe anything. I can get them to be outraged by anything. And by the way, I also want to troll the entire rest of the media because they, and look, and I tell you this all the time, I feel conflicted about covering these things because he gets us to talk about him and that's what he wants. And you think, but that's negative publicity. It isn't for Republican voters. For Republican voters, when they see us making fun of Tucker Carlson for wanting to invade Canada, they think Tucker's onto something. So like, that's why he's constantly saying one insane thing after another to get that attention because there's no downside. Whereas if we said crazy things like that, well, we'd never be allowed in anywhere in media. We're already not, just because we say it. Yeah, you know what we say about Canada? We say that they have drugs, same exact drugs as us, and the same exact from the same exact company, et cetera. That's sometimes 1/10 of the price of our drugs. And that maybe we should go, we should have the same laws as Canada so the drug prices could be 20%, 10% of what they are now. And then mainstream media is like, oh, that's terrible. Look at these crazy radical progressives. Okay, and so, so it would have massive downsides for us, but mainly from our own audience. Imagine if we came out here and we're like, Guatemala, gotta go. It's gotta go. We gotta invade. People are like, what are you, nuts, right? But his audience does not mind insanity, and he knows it, and that's what he's taking advantage of.
Yeah. I think you're onto something. I think this proves like how actually important the stakes are in the culture war. Because they say that like young men, if they're sexually frustrated, they might lash out with targeted acts of violence. Well, it's been a couple months now where Tucker Carlson can't get a boner off of a piece of candy, and now he wants to invade a neighboring country. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think he's feeling a bit pent up.
I see.
It's all coming together now. It's all coming together.
Yeah, that and the microwaving his balls.
See, we don't mean it. Okay, just to be clear.
I mean it. Talk about me. I mean it. His balls are crispy brown, and he hasn't busted. I'm not gonna continue the sentence. But anyway, talk about me. Okay.
All right. Everybody check out Ring of Fire. Excellent show that Farron Cousins hosts, as you can tell here. Great to have you on, Farron. And Damage Report also exists. Just played 11th anniversary for John on the TYT network. Everybody check out Damage Report. This second hour stories, believe it or not, a little crazier. We'll be back. Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.